The clock in the grand hallway of Kensington Palace struck 10 in the morning. Everything seemed normal as the palace staff went about their daily duties. The maids were polishing the silver in the dining room, while the gardeners tended to the beautiful roses outside. No one could have imagined that in just 2 hours everything would change completely. Sarah Thompson had been working as a palace secretary for 15 years. She knew the royal schedule like the back of her hand. Prince William and Princess Catherine had no public events planned for today. Their calendar was completely empty. Sarah was enjoying her quiet morning when her phone rang with an urgent tone she had never heard before. The voice on the other end belonged to the Queen's private secretary. His words were rushed and filled with excitement. Prince William and Catherine needed to make an immediate public appearance. The location was already decided, and the cards were being prepared. Sarah dropped her pen in shock. She had never received such short notice for a royal visit. Within minutes, the entire palace was buzzing with activity. Staff members were running through the corridors carrying papers and making urgent phone calls. The head of security was speaking rapidly into his radio while checking his watch every few seconds. Something very important was happening, but nobody knew exactly what it was. The press office was in complete chaos. Jenny Martinez had been working there for 8 years and had never seen anything like this. Her computer screen was filled with urgent emails from news reporters asking for details about the surprise visit. The problem was that Jenny had very few details to share. All she knew was that the prince and princess would be visiting a community center in South London. The community center was called Riverside Community Center. It was located in a neighborhood where many families struggled to make ends meet. Jenny had never heard of this place before today. She wondered why the royal couple would choose to visit there without any advance planning. Usually royal visits were planned months in advance with every detail carefully arranged. As Jenny typed the press release, her hands were shaking slightly. She wrote that Prince William and Catherine would be making a special visit to meet with local families and community members. She did not mention any specific purpose for the visit because she simply did not know. The mystery was making everyone at the palace very curious. Meanwhile, across London at the Riverside Community Center, Sarah Martinez was having the most shocking day of her life. She had been the director of the center for 12 years and had never received a call from Kensington Palace. When her phone rang that morning, she thought it was a joke at first. The voice on the other end was very polite and very serious. They wanted to know if the center could accommodate a royal visit in just 3 hours. Sarah's mind was racing as she tried to understand what was happening. The center was facing serious financial problems and might have to close soon. She had been working day and night trying to find solutions, but nothing seemed to work. Now suddenly, the most famous couple in Britain wanted to visit her small community center. It felt like a dream that could not be real. The news spread quickly through the neighborhood. Mrs. Johnson, who lived next door to the center, heard about the visit from her daughter, who worked at the local shop. Within an hour, there were people gathering outside the center, hoping to catch a glimpse of the royal couple. Children were pressing their faces against the windows of nearby houses, trying to see if the black cars had arrived yet. Back at the palace, the royal couple was getting ready for their surprise visit. Catherine was choosing a simple blue dress that would not look too formal for a community setting. William was reviewing what little information they had about the center and the people they would meet. Both of them seemed more excited than nervous about this unexpected addition to their day. The mystery of why they had chosen this particular place and this particular day would soon be revealed to everyone waiting at the Riverside Community Center. The Riverside Community Center stood like a lighthouse in the middle of a struggling neighborhood. For 22 years, it had been the heart of the community where families came together during their hardest times. The building was old but filled with warmth and love from all the people who had found hope within its walls. Sarah Martinez walked through the empty hallways early that morning before the royal announcement came. She touched the colorful drawings that children had made and hung on the walls. Each picture told a story of a child who had found joy and safety at the center. But Sarah's heart was heavy because she knew these walls might soon be empty forever. The center was facing the worst crisis in its history. The government had cut their funding by 60% just 3 months ago. Local businesses that used to donate money were struggling themselves and could not help anymore. Sarah had tried everything she could think of to save the place that meant so much to so many people. Every night Sarah stayed late at her desk writing letters to officials and important people asking for help. Her computer was filled with emails to politicians who rarely answered back. She had organized bake sales and charity drives, but the money they raised was like drops of water trying to fill an ocean. The bills kept coming and the bank account kept getting smaller. The center provided services that many families could not live without. Every day after school, more than 100 children came there for help with homework and hot meals. Many of these children had parents who worked 2 or 3 jobs just to pay rent. Without the center, these children would have nowhere safe to go after school. Mrs. Rosa Gonzalez brought her 3 children to the center every day. She worked as a cleaner at a hospital during the day and at an office building at night. The center was the only place where she knew her children would be safe and fed while she worked. When she heard about the possible closure, she cried for hours thinking about what would happen to her family. The center also ran job training programs for adults who had lost their work or wanted to learn new skills. James Patterson was 45 years old when he lost his factory job after 20 years. He came to the center feeling hopeless and angry. The staff helped him learn computer skills and writing. Now he had a new job at a small company and could support his family again. For the elderly people in the neighborhood, the center was often their only connection to other human beings. Every Tuesday and Thursday they came for tea and conversation. Many of them lived alone and had no family nearby. Mrs. Ellen Davis was 82 years old and had been coming to the center for 5 years. She said it was the only place where people remembered her name and cared about her stories. The center's kitchen served over 300 meals every week to families who could not afford enough food. Volunteers worked together to cook simple but nutritious meals. Children who were hungry at home could always find something to eat at the center. Parents who were struggling could take home extra food for their families. Sarah had calculated that closing the center would affect more than 500 people directly. But the real number was much higher because each person who used the center had family members and friends who depended on them. The center was like a stone thrown into water, creating circles that spread far beyond what anyone could see. The building itself was starting to show signs of the financial problems. The heating system was old and expensive to run. Some windows needed repair and the roof leaked when it rained hard. Sarah spent many nights worrying about how to pay for basic maintenance while also keeping the programs running. Despite all these problems, the staff and volunteers never gave up hope. They continued to welcome everyone with smiles and open arms. They knew that for many people, the center was not just a building, but a lifeline that kept them connected to hope and community during their darkest times. 3 months earlier, Princess Catherine had been driving through South London after visiting a children's hospital nearby. She was not in her official royal car, but in a simple black vehicle with just one security officer. Catherine often took these quiet drives to think about her work and the people she had met during her royal duties. As her car stopped at a red traffic light, Catherine noticed something unusual. Behind a modest brick building, she could see children playing in a small courtyard. Their laughter filled the air, and they seemed so happy despite the simple playground equipment. Catherine had always been drawn to places where children gathered, and she asked her driver to pull over so she could take a closer look. The building had a small sign that read Riverside Community Center. Catherine could see through the windows that inside was bustling with activity. Elderly people were sitting around tables talking and sharing tea. Adults were gathered in another room that looked like a classroom. The whole place seemed alive with purpose and community spirit. Catherine made a decision that would change everything. She told her security officer that she wanted to go inside and meet the people who ran this special place. He was worried about her safety and the lack of advanced planning, but Catherine was determined. She had learned to trust her instincts about places and people that felt important. Sarah Martinez was shocked when a well-dressed woman walked into her office that afternoon. At first she did not recognize Catherine because she was wearing simple clothes and no jewelry. Catherine introduced herself quietly and asked if she could learn more about the center's work. Sarah was so surprised she could barely speak. Catherine spent 2 hours at the center that first day. She sat with children doing their homework and listened to their dreams about the future. She talked with elderly visitors who shared stories about their families and their lives in the neighborhood. She met parents who worked multiple jobs but still found time to volunteer at the center because it meant so much to their families. What touched Catherine most deeply was seeing how everyone at the center cared for each other like a real family. When one child was sad about problems at home, the others gathered around to comfort him. When Mrs. Davis mentioned that she had no one to celebrate her birthday with, the staff organized a surprise party for her the next week. Catherine began coming to the center regularly, but always in secret. She would arrive in ordinary clothes with minimal security and spend hours talking with people and helping wherever she could. Sometimes she brought homemade sandwiches for the lunch program. Other times she simply sat and listened to people who needed someone to hear their stories. The staff at the center were sworn to secrecy about Catherine's visits. They understood that she wanted to help without the pressure and attention that came with her royal status. Catherine was not there as the Princess of Wales, but simply as a person who cared about the community and wanted to make a difference. During her visits, Catherine learned about each family's struggles and dreams. She met Maria Santos, whose husband had been injured at work and could no longer support their family. She talked with a teenage boy named David who was struggling in school but had found confidence through the center's tutoring program. She listened to a war veteran named Michael who said the center was the only place where he felt understood and accepted. Catherine also learned about the center's financial problems from Sarah Martinez. She saw how hard Sarah worked to keep the programs running despite having very little money. Catherine watched Sarah stay late every night writing grant applications and organizing fundraising events that brought in small amounts of money compared to what was really needed. As weeks turned into months, Catherine realized that the Riverside Community Center represented everything she believed about helping people and building stronger communities. She knew that losing this place would be devastating for hundreds of families who depended on it for support, hope, and connection. The early morning light painted the streets of London in soft golden colors as thousands of people gathered along the sidewalks. Men and women of all ages stood together with their children holding small British flags and handmade signs. Their faces showed a mix of excitement and deep concern that had been building for many months. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, had been away from public view for what felt like forever to the people who loved her. The royal family had shared very little information about her condition, which left everyone wondering and worrying about their beloved princess. Every small update from the palace was read carefully by millions of people who considered Catherine part of their own family. During these difficult months, William had also stepped back from many of his usual royal duties. The prince, who was always so strong and composed, now carried the weight of caring for his wife and 3 young children. Palace workers whispered quietly about how tired he looked and how he spent most of his time at home instead of attending official events. People noticed the change in William during his few public appearances. His usual bright smile seemed forced, and his eyes showed the strain of someone dealing with serious family problems. Mothers and fathers across the country understood exactly how he felt because they had faced similar scary situations with their own loved ones. The absence of Catherine from royal events created a huge empty space that everyone could feel. She had always been the one who made children laugh during school visits and who remembered the names of charity workers she had met before. Her warm hugs and genuine interest in people's problems had made her special to so many families. Every day, flowers and cards arrived at the palace gates from people who wanted Catherine to know they were thinking about her. Children drew pictures of princesses getting better, and elderly people wrote letters sharing their own stories of overcoming illness. The pile of gifts and messages grew bigger each week, showing how much the nation cared. Schools that Catherine had visited before felt her absence deeply. Teachers told their students about the princess, who cared about their education and dreams. The charities she supported continued their work, but everyone knew something important was missing without her bright presence and encouraging words. Royal watchers and news reporters tried to piece together information from the few official statements released by the palace. Every photograph of William looking serious or tired was studied carefully for clues about how the family was really doing. The public hunger for news showed how much Catherine meant to ordinary people. Behind the palace walls, the reality was even more challenging than people imagined. William balanced his role as a future king with being a worried husband and protective father. He read bedtime stories to George, Charlotte, and Louis while trying to shield them from the constant media attention and public speculation about their mother's health. The three royal children had their own questions and fears about why their mother was not doing her usual royal work. William and Catherine worked together to explain things in ways that would not frighten them, while still being honest about the situation they were all facing as a family. Palace staff members who had worked with Catherine for years missed her daily presence and positive energy. The hallways seemed quieter without her laughter, and the offices felt empty without her detailed questions about upcoming events and her ideas for making them more meaningful for the people they would meet. Medical experts who were helping Catherine praised her strength and determination throughout her treatment. They saw how she never complained and always asked more questions about other patients than about her own condition. Her grace under pressure impressed everyone who worked with her during this private battle. As weeks turned into months, the public support for Catherine and William only grew stronger. People organized prayer groups in churches across the country and social media, filled with messages of love and encouragement. The royal couple felt this overwhelming support even though they could not respond to every kind gesture. The palace telephone rang early on Tuesday morning in the private secretary's office. The news that would change everything was about to be shared with the world. After months of careful planning and quiet preparation, Catherine and William had made their decision. They were ready to take the first step back into public life together. The official announcement was released at exactly 9 o'clock in the morning through all royal communication channels. Their Royal Highnesses would visit the Manchester Children's Hospital the following week. This would mark Catherine's first major public appearance since stepping back from royal duties to focus on her health and recovery. Within minutes of the announcement, social media platforms exploded with excitement and joy. The hashtag about Catherine's return began trending worldwide as people shared their happiness and relief. News websites crashed temporarily from the massive number of people trying to read every detail about the planned hospital visit. At the Manchester Children's Hospital, staff members gathered around computers and phones as they received the incredible news. The hospital director had been working secretly with palace officials for weeks to plan every detail of the visit. Now that the news was public, the entire medical team felt overwhelming excitement, mixed with the pressure of making everything perfect. Nurses who had been caring for young patients with serious illnesses felt tears of joy knowing that Catherine would soon meet their brave little fighters. Many of these children had been following news about the princess during their own treatment. They understood what it meant to be scared and to fight for better health. The timing of the hospital visit felt especially meaningful because the hospital had recently opened a new wing dedicated to treating children with cancer. This new area had been built with donations from people across the country who wanted to help families facing the same type of challenges that Catherine had experienced. Parents of patients at the hospital began calling friends and family to share the amazing news. Many of these mothers and fathers had been praying for Catherine during their own children's treatment. They felt a special connection to the princess because they understood the fear and uncertainty that comes with serious health problems. Royal protection officers immediately began their detailed security preparations for the visit. Every hallway in the hospital was carefully examined and every entrance was checked multiple times. The team worked closely with hospital security to create plans that would keep everyone safe while allowing for meaningful interactions. Local government officials in Manchester started preparing for the increased attention their city would receive. Hotels began receiving booking requests from news crews and royal watchers who wanted to witness this historic return to public duties. The entire city felt proud to be chosen for such an important moment. Palace staff who had been quietly supporting Catherine during her time away from public duties felt relieved and excited. They had watched her gradual improvement, and knew how much courage it took for her to agree to this public appearance. Every detail of the visit was planned with care and love. News reporters from around the world began making travel arrangements to cover the hospital visit. This was not just another royal event, but a symbol of hope and recovery that people everywhere could relate to. The story touched hearts because it showed how real people deal with life's biggest challenges. Children at the hospital who were healthy enough to understand began asking their parents if they would meet the real princess. Nurses started preparing special activities and decorations to make the visit memorable for patients who had been so brave during their own difficult treatments. The announcement brought hope not just to the hospital, but to families everywhere who were dealing with illness. Catherine's decision to visit sick children for her return to public life showed her character and her understanding of what really mattered in life. Community groups in Manchester began organizing welcome celebrations along the route to the hospital. People wanted to show their support and love for Catherine as she took this important step back into public service after her private battle with health challenges. The black royal car slowly approached the main entrance of Manchester Children's Hospital at exactly 11 o'clock in the morning. Hundreds of people had been waiting since sunrise to catch their first glimpse of Catherine after so many months. The crowd held their breath as the vehicle came to a gentle stop near the hospital doors. William stepped out first from the passenger side looking handsome in his dark navy suit. His protective nature was clear to everyone watching as he walked around the car to help his wife. The prince's movements were careful and gentle, showing how much he cared about Catherine's comfort and well-being during this important moment. When Catherine emerged from the car, the waiting crowd gasped with joy and amazement. She looked absolutely radiant, wearing a beautiful light blue coat that made her eyes sparkle in the morning sunlight. Her hair was styled in a softer, shorter cut that framed her face perfectly and made her look both elegant and approachable. Despite everything she had been through, Catherine's smile was as warm and genuine as people remembered. Her complexion glowed with health and her posture showed confidence and grace. The months of recovery had not dimmed her natural beauty, but had perhaps made it even more meaningful and inspiring to those who saw her. The royal couple paused at the hospital entrance and turned toward the crowd of supporters who had waited so patiently. Catherine raised her hand in a gentle wave, and her face lit up with genuine happiness at seeing so many people who had come to welcome her back. The moment felt magical and deeply emotional for everyone present. Children from nearby schools had been given permission to leave class early to see the princess. They waved small flags and held up colorful drawings they had made specially for this day. Catherine's eyes moved across the crowd, taking in every sign and every smiling face with obvious appreciation and gratitude. Hospital staff members who had been preparing for weeks felt tears forming in their eyes as they watched this historic moment unfold. Senior nurses and doctors stood at attention near the entrance doors, ready to welcome the royal visitors into their workplace. The pride and excitement on their faces showed how much this visit meant to them personally. Young patients pressed their faces against windows on the upper floors of the hospital building. Some were too sick to come downstairs, but they did not want to miss seeing the real princess arrive. Nurses helped position wheelchairs and moved medical equipment so that as many children as possible could witness this special moment. Security officers surrounded the area, but kept their distance to allow for natural interactions between the royal couple and the waiting supporters. The atmosphere felt safe and controlled, but also warm and welcoming. Everyone understood that this was Catherine's first major public appearance and wanted everything to go perfectly. News photographers captured every moment as Catherine and William walked slowly toward the hospital doors. The pictures would be seen around the world within hours, showing Catherine's successful return to public duties. But for the people watching in person, this was much more than a photo opportunity. Local residents who had followed Catherine's health journey felt overwhelming relief and joy seeing her looking so well and happy. Many had sent prayers and good wishes during her difficult months. Now they were witnessing the answer to those prayers as she took confident steps back into public service. The couple stopped several times to acknowledge different sections of the crowd. Catherine's genuine interest in the people who would come to see her was obvious. She pointed and waved at children who called out her name and smiled warmly at elderly supporters who had waited hours in the cool morning air. As William and Catherine finally reached the hospital doors, they turned one more time to wave at the crowd. The cheers and applause that followed them inside would echo in their hearts throughout the day ahead. Inside the bright, colorful pediatric ward, Catherine immediately felt at home, surrounded by the cheerful decorations and artwork created by young patients. The walls were covered with rainbows, butterflies, and inspirational messages that lifted everyone's spirits. She moved naturally toward the first group of children who were waiting eagerly to meet their special visitor. 7-year-old Emma sat in her hospital bed, wearing her favorite pink pajamas decorated with unicorns. She had been receiving treatment for leukemia for 6 months and had followed every news story about Catherine during her own difficult journey. When the princess approached her bed, Emma's eyes grew wide with wonder and excitement. Catherine knelt down beside Emma's bed so they could speak at the same eye level. Her voice was soft and caring as she asked about the beautiful artwork covering the walls around Emma's space. The little girl explained proudly that she had painted most of the pictures during her long days in the hospital when she felt well enough to hold a paintbrush. Emma had prepared a very special gift for this moment. She reached under her pillow and pulled out a colorful drawing of a magnificent castle with a princess who looked remarkably like Catherine. The princess in the picture wore a sparkling crown and had kind eyes just like the real Catherine standing beside her bed. When Emma offered her artwork to Catherine, the princess accepted it with obvious emotion. Her eyes filled with tears as she studied every detail of the drawing. She could see the time and love that Emma had put into creating this special gift during her treatment. Catherine promised Emma that she would treasure the drawing forever and find a special place for it in her home. William watched his wife interact with Emma and felt his heart swell with pride and admiration. He saw how naturally Catherine connected with the brave little girl and how much comfort she brought just by being present. The prince understood that this was why they did their royal work, to bring hope and joy to people who needed it most. 9-year-old James was eager to show off his new prosthetic leg that had been decorated with colorful superhero stickers. He had lost his leg to bone cancer, but refused to let that slow him down. James wanted to be a professional football player when he grew up and practiced walking with his new leg every day. Catherine and William both celebrated James's courage and determination with genuine enthusiasm. They asked questions about his favorite superheroes and listened carefully as he explained his dreams of playing football again. The royal couple understood that James was a real superhero for fighting such a difficult battle with such positive spirit. In the next bed, 10-year-old Sarah was too weak from her chemotherapy treatment to sit up, but her smile was bright when Catherine approached. The princess sat gently on the edge of the bed and held Sarah's small hand while they talked about her favorite books and movies. Catherine's presence seemed to give Sarah energy and hope. The nurses watching these interactions felt amazed by Catherine's natural ability to connect with each child as an individual. She remembered details from their conversations and asked follow-up questions that showed she was truly listening. Her genuine care and interest made each child feel special and important. Other young patients who were feeling well enough gathered around to meet the princess. Catherine moved between their beds and chairs, giving each child her complete attention. She admired their courage, praised their artwork, and listened to their stories with obvious interest and compassion. The pediatric ward felt transformed by Catherine's presence. Children who had been quiet and withdrawn suddenly became animated and talkative. The princess had brought something magical into their world that went far beyond her royal title. She had brought hope, understanding, and the knowledge that someone important cared about their struggles. Hospital staff members took pictures to help the children remember this special day forever. They knew that these moments with Catherine would become treasured memories that would help the young patients through difficult treatments ahead. The visit was creating healing that went beyond medicine. In the hospital's quiet family room, Catherine sat down with parents whose children were fighting serious illnesses. The comfortable chairs were arranged in a circle, creating an intimate space for honest conversation. These mothers and fathers had been living in the hospital for weeks or months, supporting their sick children through treatments. Sarah's mother, Margaret, had not slept properly in 3 weeks while her 5-year-old son waited for a heart transplant. The exhausted woman felt overwhelmed by the constant worry and the need to stay strong for her little boy. When Catherine sat beside her, Margaret felt comfortable sharing her deepest fears about the uncertain future. Catherine listened with complete attention as Margaret described the daily challenges of hospital life. The princess understood the feeling of being scared and helpless when someone you love is seriously ill. She shared her own experience of learning to accept help from others instead of trying to handle everything alone. Sometimes the hardest days require us to lean on other people, Catherine said gently. Accepting support from family, friends, and medical teams is not giving up control but finding wisdom in community. Her words touched Margaret's heart because they came from someone who truly understood the struggle of facing health problems. David, whose 12-year-old daughter was receiving treatment for brain cancer, had been trying to work from the hospital to support his family financially. The stress of balancing work responsibilities with his daughter's medical needs was crushing his spirit. He felt guilty when he focused on work and worried when he focused only on his daughter. William joined the conversation and connected immediately with David's struggle. The prince understood the pressure of having multiple responsibilities during a family crisis. He spoke about the importance of fathers taking care of their own physical and emotional health so they could better support their families through difficult times. The royal couple spent much longer in the family room than their schedule allowed. They could not bear to rush through such meaningful conversations with parents who were carrying such heavy burdens. Catherine and William felt honored that these families trusted them enough to share their most personal struggles and fears. Lisa had been living at the hospital for 2 months while her 8-year-old twin boys received treatment for the same rare blood disorder. She felt isolated from friends and family who could not understand what daily life in a pediatric hospital was really like. The loneliness sometimes felt almost as difficult as watching her children suffer. Catherine took both of Lisa's hands and looked directly into her tired eyes. The princess acknowledged how hard it must be to feel alone during such a frightening time. She reminded Lisa that asking for help and talking about fears with other parents or counselors was a sign of strength, not weakness. The group of parents began talking among themselves, sharing tips for managing hospital life and offering emotional support to one another. Catherine and William watched as connections formed between families who had been strangers just an hour earlier. The royal visit had created a community of support that would continue long after they left. Hospital social workers who observed these interactions felt amazed by Catherine's natural counseling abilities. She asked thoughtful questions that helped parents express their feelings and offered practical suggestions based on her own experience with uncertainty and recovery. Her presence brought comfort that professional training alone could not provide. Young fathers who had been trying to appear strong and unemotional found themselves opening up about their fears. William's honest discussion of his own struggles gave them permission to admit their vulnerability. The prince showed them that real strength sometimes means acknowledging when situations are overwhelming. The family room conversations created bonds between the royal couple and the hospital families that felt genuine and lasting. Catherine and William exchanged contact information with several parents and promised to follow up on their children's progress. These were not just ceremonial interactions, but real relationships based on shared understanding. As the conversation time ended, parents hugged Catherine and William with tears in their eyes. They felt less alone in their battles and more hopeful about their children's futures. The royal couple had given them something precious, the knowledge that people in positions of influence truly cared about their struggles. When Catherine and William stepped outside the hospital for their walkabout, the crowd had grown much larger than anyone expected. Word about the successful visit inside had spread quickly and more people kept arriving throughout the afternoon. The atmosphere was charged with emotion as hundreds of supporters pressed forward, hoping to catch a glimpse of their beloved princess. The reaction from the waiting crowd was unlike anything seen at previous royal events. People were not just cheering and clapping, but many were openly crying with joy and relief. Months of worry and concern were being released in an overwhelming display of love and support for Catherine and her family. Margaret Thompson, an elderly woman from nearby Stockport, had been waiting for over 3 hours to see Catherine. She had followed every news update during the princess's health battle and had prayed for her recovery every single night. When Catherine walked directly toward her section of the crowd, Margaret's emotions completely overwhelmed her. Catherine noticed Margaret's tears immediately and stopped to speak with her personally. The princess took both of the elderly woman's hands in her own and listened as Margaret managed to say through her sobs that she had been praying for Catherine every day. The genuine connection between them created a moment that photographers captured and that would touch hearts around the world. "Your prayers and support have meant everything to me and my family," Catherine replied with obvious emotion in her voice. She spent several minutes talking with Margaret about her grandchildren and her life in Stockport. The conversation felt natural and unrushed, despite the hundreds of other people waiting nearby. Young mothers pushed forward through the crowd carrying their babies and toddlers, hoping for a chance to introduce their children to the princess. Catherine's interactions with these families were patient and genuine. She asked about the children's ages, complimented their cute outfits, and posed for pictures that the families would treasure forever. Teenagers who had skipped school to witness this historic moment could barely contain their excitement when Catherine stopped to talk with them. She asked about their studies, their hobbies, and their plans for the future. The princess treated them with the same respect and interest she had shown to the elderly supporters and young families. The crowd's energy was both joyful and deeply moving. These were not just royal fans seeking entertainment, but people who had been genuinely worried about someone they cared about. Their tears of happiness reflected months of concern finally being replaced by relief and celebration of Catherine's successful return to public life. Local shopkeepers had closed their businesses early to join the crowd outside the hospital. Teachers had brought entire school classes to witness this special moment in their community's history. The gathering represented people from all walks of life, united in their support for the royal family during difficult times. Catherine's stamina throughout the long walkabout impressed everyone watching. She moved slowly through the crowd, making sure to acknowledge as many people as possible. Her energy seemed to grow stronger as she interacted with supporters rather than becoming tired from the emotional demands of the day. William stayed close beside his wife, but also engaged in his own conversations with crowd members. He thanked people for their support during their family's challenging months and praised the community spirit he was witnessing. The prince's gratitude felt completely genuine and heartfelt. Children who had been lifted onto their parents' shoulders waved enthusiastically when Catherine looked in their direction. She made sure to wave back and smile at each young face she could see. Her natural connection with children was evident even in this large crowd setting. The walkabout continued much longer than originally planned because Catherine and William did not want to disappoint anyone who had waited so patiently. Palace security quietly adjusted their schedule to allow for more meaningful interactions with the supporters who had shown such dedication. Social media immediately filled with videos and photos from people in the crowd. The images showed genuine moments of human connection rather than posed ceremonial shots. People shared their personal encounters with Catherine and described how moved they felt by her grace and warmth during such an emotional day. As the royal couple finally prepared to leave, the crowd began singing spontaneously. The song was not planned or organized, but grew naturally from the overwhelming love and support surrounding Catherine and William. The beautiful sound followed them as they walked back toward their waiting car. News reporters who had covered hundreds of royal events struggled to maintain their professional composure while describing the emotional scenes from Manchester. Veteran journalists found themselves wiping away tears as they broadcast live reports about Catherine's triumphant return to public duties. The story was resonating with audiences in ways that went far beyond typical royal coverage. Television news anchors across Britain interrupted their regular programming to share updates from the hospital visit. The footage of Catherine interacting with sick children and comforting worried parents created powerful images that spoke to universal human experiences of illness recovery and family love. Viewers felt connected to the story on a deeply personal level. International news networks picked up the coverage and broadcast it around the world. From Australia to Canada, people watched Catherine's graceful return with admiration and respect. The story became a symbol of courage, resilience, and the healing power of community support that transcended cultural and national boundaries. Social media platforms experienced unprecedented activity as people shared their reactions to the hospital visit. The hashtag #WelcomeBackCatherine began trending globally within hours of the walkabout. Instead of focusing on fashion or protocol, people posted about the emotional connections they had witnessed and the inspiration they drew from Catherine's strength. Amateur videos taken by crowd members showed moments that professional cameras had missed. A grandmother sharing a quiet conversation with Catherine. A young father getting advice from William about balancing work and family responsibilities. These personal interactions revealed the authentic human connections that made the visit so meaningful. Royal photography experts noted how different these images were from standard royal event photos. Instead of formal posed shots, the pictures captured genuine emotions and spontaneous moments. Catherine's natural expressions of joy, concern, and compassion told a story that resonated with people who had never met her personally. Hospital administrators reported that the positive impact of the visit extended far beyond the single day. Staff morale remained elevated for weeks afterward, and families continued sharing stories about how the royal couple's presence had given them renewed hope and strength for their ongoing medical battles. Medical professionals who worked with Catherine during her own treatment praised her decision to visit sick children for her return to public duties. They understood that helping others often accelerates personal healing, and that Catherine's choice showed wisdom about the therapeutic value of service to others. International royal watchers compared the Manchester visit to other historic moments in modern monarchy. Many concluded that Catherine and William had redefined what royal service could look like in the 21st century. Their focus on authentic human connection, rather than ceremonial tradition, set a new standard for meaningful public engagement. News editors struggled to find the right words to describe the emotional impact of the day's events. Terms like inspiring, heartwarming, and transformative appeared in headlines around the world. The story touched something deeper than curiosity about celebrity or fascination with royal protocol. Child psychology experts who saw the coverage praised Catherine's natural ability to connect with young patients. They noted how her interactions seemed to energize and encourage children who had been withdrawn or discouraged by their illnesses. Her presence demonstrated the healing power of compassionate attention from caring adults. Public relations professionals studied the Manchester visit as an example of authentic communication during crisis recovery. Catherine and William had shown how to reconnect with supporters after a difficult period without appearing staged or calculated. Their genuine emotions and unscripted interactions created trust and renewed loyalty. Local Manchester news outlets reported a surge of pride in their community for being chosen to host such an important royal return. Hotels, restaurants, and shops near the hospital experienced increased business from visitors who wanted to see where the historic visit had taken place. The economic impact added to the positive legacy of the day. Letters and emails poured into the palace from people around the world who had been moved by coverage of the hospital visit. Parents facing their own children's illnesses wrote to thank Catherine for showing them how to find strength during scary times. Her example had given them courage to continue fighting for their families. The global response to Catherine's return demonstrated how much modern audiences hunger for authentic leadership and genuine human connection. In a world often filled with conflict and division, the Manchester visit provided an example of how individual acts of compassion can create positive change that spreads far beyond their original setting. The royal car pulled away from Manchester Children's Hospital as the sun began to set, painting the sky in soft orange and pink colors. Catherine and William settled into their seats for the quiet drive back to London, both feeling emotionally drained, but deeply fulfilled by the meaningful connections they had made throughout the day. Catherine gazed out the window at the countryside passing by, while processing the overwhelming love and support they had received from everyone they met. The faces of the brave children in the hospital stayed in her mind, along with the gratitude she had seen in their parents' eyes. The experience had reminded her why public service felt so important and rewarding. William reached across the seat to take his wife's hand, squeezing it gently as they both reflected on the powerful emotions of the day. They had witnessed incredible courage from young patients facing unimaginable challenges and had been inspired by parents who refused to give up hope despite frightening circumstances. The visit had changed both Catherine and William in ways they were still discovering. They had started the morning feeling nervous about Catherine's first major public appearance in months, but ended the day feeling energized and deeply connected to their purpose as working members of the royal family. Palace staff members who had accompanied the couple throughout the day sat quietly in the following car, also processing what they had witnessed. They had seen Catherine transform from someone cautiously returning to public life into a confident princess, fully engaged with her role and passionate about helping others. Phone calls began coming through to the car from other members of the royal family who had been watching news coverage of the hospital visit. The Queen called personally to express her pride and joy at seeing Catherine looking so well and engaged with the people they served. Her voice carried obvious emotion and relief. Prince Charles and Camilla also called to congratulate Catherine and William on the success of the day. They had been following every news report and felt moved by the genuine connections they saw their family members making with hospital patients and their families. The entire royal family felt renewed hope about Catherine's recovery. Catherine's parents, Michael and Carol Middleton, had watched the television coverage from their home and called to tell their daughter how proud they felt. They had worried constantly during her difficult months, and seeing her radiant smile and confident interactions with children brought them tremendous relief and happiness. The three young royal children had been staying with their grandparents during the hospital visit, but had seen some of the news coverage appropriate for their ages. George, Charlotte, and Louis felt excited to hear about their mother meeting brave children who were fighting illnesses and looking forward to hearing more stories when their parents returned home. As the car approached London, Catherine and William began discussing how they wanted to follow up on the connections they had made. They planned to send personal notes to several of the families they had met and wanted to stay updated on the progress of children like Emma, James, and Sarah. The couple also talked about scheduling more hospital visits in the coming months. Catherine felt energized by the positive impact they had been able to make and wanted to continue supporting families facing health challenges. The experience had shown her how much strength she could draw from helping others. William admired how naturally his wife had connected with every person they met, from young patients to elderly supporters in the crowd. Her genuine interest in their stories and her ability to offer comfort and encouragement seemed to come from a deeper place of understanding developed through her own recent struggles. Palace communication staff were already preparing follow-up statements and planning future engagements based on the success of the Manchester visit. They had seen how much the public hungered for authentic interactions with working royals who genuinely cared about the people they served. The drive home gave Catherine and William time to process the profound impact the day had made on their understanding of their royal roles. They had been reminded that their positions came with the privilege and responsibility of bringing hope, comfort, and attention to people who needed support during difficult times. As London's lights appeared in the distance, both Catherine and William felt grateful for the opportunity to serve others and excited about the public engagements that lay ahead. The Manchester visit had marked not just Catherine's return to royal duties, but a renewed sense of purpose for both of them as they prepared to continue their life of service to others. That evening, Catherine and William arrived home to find their three children waiting eagerly to hear about their parents' special day at the hospital. George, Charlotte, and Louis had prepared drawings and had many questions about the brave children their mother and father had met. The family gathered in the comfortable sitting room for story time before bed. Catherine carefully chose age-appropriate details to share with her children about the young patients who were fighting serious illnesses. She explained how some children their age were living in hospitals while receiving medicine to help them get better. The royal children listened with wide eyes and serious expressions as they learned about courage and hope. "Will you visit more hospitals?" Mummy Charlotte asked with the direct honesty that only children possess. Catherine smiled warmly while brushing her daughter's soft hair back from her face. "When people need encouragement and hope, we will be there," she promised. The conversation became a valuable lesson about service compassion and using privilege to help others. Prince George, who was old enough to understand more complex emotions, asked if the sick children felt scared. William explained that being afraid during difficult times was completely normal and that brave people feel scared but keep trying anyway. He told his son that real courage means helping others even when situations feel overwhelming. Young Prince Louis wanted to know if the children in the hospital had toys to play with during their treatment. Catherine explained that many families had to leave their homes and favorite things behind when they moved to hospitals for medical care. This sparked a family discussion about donating toys and books to help other children feel more comfortable. As the bedtime stories concluded, Catherine and William tucked each of their children into their comfortable beds. The contrast between their family's security and the uncertainty faced by the hospital families they had met that day was not lost on either parent. They felt grateful for their health and determined to use their position to help others. Later that evening, as Catherine and William sat together in their private study, they watched news highlights from the Manchester visit on television. Seeing the coverage helped them process the emotional intensity of the day and understand the broader impact their appearance had made on people across the country and around the world. The couple received dozens of text messages and emails from friends, family members, and colleagues who had seen the hospital visit coverage. Everyone expressed joy at seeing Catherine looking so healthy and engaged. Many people shared how moved they felt watching the genuine connections between the royal couple and the families they met. Catherine opened her laptop to read some of the thousands of messages that had been sent to the palace website from people inspired by the day's events. Parents facing their own children's illnesses wrote to thank her for showing them how to find strength during frightening times. Her example had given them courage to continue fighting for their families. Teachers wrote to describe how they had used news coverage of the hospital visit to discuss compassion and service with their students. Children across the country had been inspired to organize their own charity projects to help sick children in their communities. The positive impact was spreading far beyond the original visit. William found messages from military colleagues and fellow veterans who praised Catherine's courage in returning to public service during her recovery process. They understood that facing fears and continuing to serve others required real strength and determination. Their respect for Catherine had grown even deeper. The couple spent time planning future engagements that would allow them to continue supporting families facing health challenges. They wanted to visit more hospitals, work with medical charities, and advocate for better support systems for families dealing with serious illnesses. The Manchester experience had given them clear direction for their service. Palace staff called to report that several charitable organizations were requesting partnerships with Catherine and William based on the positive response to the hospital visit. Medical research foundations wanted their support, and family support groups hoped they would become patrons of their important work. As the evening grew late, Catherine and William reflected on how much their understanding of their royal roles had deepened through the day's experiences. They had been reminded that true leadership meant showing up for people during their most difficult moments and using their platform to bring attention to important causes. The successful return to public life marked not just Catherine's recovery, but a new chapter for the entire family. They felt more connected to their purpose, more grateful for their opportunities, and more committed to making a positive difference in the lives of people who needed support and encouragement. Before falling asleep, Catherine looked at Emma's colorful drawing of the castle and princess that now hung in a place of honor on their bedroom wall. The artwork would remind her daily of the brave children who had taught her about real courage and the healing power of helping others during their own times of need.